Discover the heartwarming moment: Officer and his incredible German Shepherd save a girl's life. In the quaint town of Oakwood, where pumpkin spice wafted through the air and laughter danced beneath the bright banners of the annual Harvest Festival, Officer Jake Dawson stood at the center of it all. With his loyal German Shepherd, Rex, by his side, he was the kind of cop who didn't just enforce the law, he was part of the community's heartbeat. Families waved, children giggled, and for a brief moment, the weight of economic hardship felt distant. But then, a chilling scream sliced through the joy. Whereas Sarah? Rebecca, a single mother known for her unwavering courage, fell to her knees amid the bustling crowd. Panic gripped her as she glanced around, distress radiating from every pore. The laughter faded as murmurs began to swirl among the festival-goers, judgment hanging thick in the air like the scent of roasting corn. How could a mother lose her child amid such watchful eyes? Jake's heart tightened as he swiftly knelt beside Rebecca. "We'll find her," he said, his voice steady, reassuring. He felt the weight of every parental worry, he shared the burden of fear now echoing through the festival grounds. As he unleashed his trust in Rex, the dog's nose sniffed eagerly, sensing the rising tension that stuck to the air like a weight. Each second felt like a minute. The community he loved looked on, worry etched on their faces. Time slipped through Jake's fingers, and doubt began swirling in his mind. Would they find Sarah in time? Could the sunny festival turn cold, consumed by shadows of blame? Then, a whisper of understanding emerged among crowd members. Stories flickered into life: families strapped down by bills, parents stretched thin by the demands of life, all fearing the same unspoken truths that haunted them. When the fears of the unknown began bubbling to the surface, Jake felt something shift within him. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With renewed determination, Jake rallied the townsfolk. "Let us split up. Rex and I will lead the search around the fields." Families joined in, voices rising in a chorus of hope-filled shouts as they scattered, friends becoming allies united under the banner of compassion. Tension rippled through the festival, but in that moment, in that palpable unity, something transformational occurred. Jake propelled himself forward, instincts heightened and heart pounding. Yet amid the urgency, he recognized the deeper dilemma looming: their connected struggles as a community. Sarah's absence was a reminder that every soul in Oakwood bore scars, visible or hidden. With Rex guiding him, Jake dove deeper into the throng of worried bodies, unsure of what awaited but resolute in his commitment to reunite mother and daughter. As they searched deeper into the heart of the festival, it became clear this quest was about more than one lost girl. It was about healing the fragile fabric of community itself. Would they find Sarah? Or would the divisions of doubt and fear prevail, fracturing them even further? As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue on the uncertainty, the story hung on a delicate thread, just waiting for a spark of resolution. The crowd was a chaotic sea of worried faces, but for Jake, there was only one thing clear: he had to find Sarah. Each scream of her name echoed in his mind, urgency fueling his steps. Rex stayed close, nose to the ground, moving deftly through the legs of festival-goers. "Over here!" shouted a woman from a nearby tent, her voice trembling. Jake sprinted toward her, heart racing, only to find she was pointing at a still shot of laughter, children playing with balloons. Not Sarah. Just more distractions. He shook his head, refocusing. As Jake pressed on, he caught a glimpse of Rebecca, her face a portrait of worry, fragile yet fierce. How loudly her heart must have been screaming. In that moment, he realized they were all connected, not just through fear, but through the fabric of community that they had all woven together. "Stay strong, we'll find her," Jake called out, trying to bolster her spirit amidst the chaos. She looked up, tears glistening in her eyes, nodding yet still lost in despair. That pain resonated through him like a cold wind. Every parent's nightmare echoed in that fleeting glance. Rex continued to sniff around the periphery, leading them through booths selling crafts and treats, every cheerful face contrasting starkly with the heaviness lacing the air around them. The music from a nearby stage faded away into the background. All Jake could hear was the pounding of his heart and the murmurs of the crowd, a collective worry that hung like a veil. "Help me look!" Jake shouted, as he spotted a group of people clustering near a game booth. They looked concerned, even frantic. He rushed over, exchanging glances of urgency, each movement filled with a raw energy of searching that ignited hope in the air. Did anyone see a girl? A little girl with a pink dress? No one had seen her. Jake felt the frustration and fear bubbling up again, but he shoved it down. They had to keep moving. Rex darted off into the distance, driven by instincts, his tail high, marking the rhythm of hope in Jake's heart. Soon they reached the outskirts of the festival, where the landscape opened up to a small wooded park. Jake's gut instinct flared. Something told him they needed to check here. "Stay close," he urged the few townsfolk who had followed him, the bond of shared anxiety tying them together. The quiet of the trees surrounded them, sounds of the festival fading into a distant memory. Jake felt the weight of despair wrapped around them like a shroud. "Rex, find her." The command rang clear, his voice echoing off the trees. Rex perked up, sniffing, scanning the area like a seasoned detective. Then suddenly, a small sob broke through the stillness. Jake froze, heart racing in his chest. It was unmistakable, a sign of fear and loneliness. He turned towards the sound, dread mixing with hope. "Sarah?" he called softly, moving toward the sound. Behind a large oak, he found a small figure huddled, trembling, her pink dress stained and dirted but undeniably intact. Relief and joy washed over him. "Sarah!" he exclaimed, rushing to her side. But as he knelt down, he saw her tear-streaked face and felt the flicker of unease return. She was alone, frightened, but also something wasn't right. The festival behind them, once a celebration, now felt fragmented. Why had she wandered off? Before he could ask, a high-pitched cry cut through the air. "You shouldn't have left." The accusation hung heavy, and Jake turned slowly, dread creeping back in. Rebecca was rushing toward them, face twisted in pain and anger. In that charged moment, answers seemed far away, and a deeper story of the community and its scars threatened to unravel. How would they heal the rift growing in their hearts? What lay ahead as they faced not only Sarah's fear but also the echoes of their own mistakes? Jake felt unease settling in like a storm cloud. Just then, another voice broke in. "Look out!" Jake turned sharply, just in time to see Rex lunging at something in the brush near the park's edge, barking fiercely. What had they stumbled into now? Jake's heart pounded in his chest as he spun around. Rex was low to the ground, eyes fixed on something lurking in the shadows of the thick underbrush. The bark pierced the quiet, raw and urgent, breaking through the chaos in his mind. "Rex, no!" Jake called, stepping forward to grab his dog's collar. But the loyal German shepherd was already in motion, darting through the brush, bracing himself for something unknown. "We need to stay together," Rebecca shouted, her voice cracking, still holding Sarah tightly to her side. The sight of her daughter, trembling but alive, seemed to fuel her desperation. Jake hesitated for a split second, torn between protecting Sarah and following Rex. But the instinct to defend his dog ripped through any hesitation. With the adrenaline pumping through him, he propelled himself forward, pushing through the greenery after Rex, tracking that wild spirit as it led him deeper into the unknown. "Stay here," he yelled back at Rebecca, even as the trepidation gnawed at him. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more hidden beneath the surface, something unreal lurking beyond the reach of the festival sounds. In the dense brush, Rex suddenly stopped, feet planted, growling deep in his throat. Jake emerged to find the source of his dog's alarm, a small creature, trapped, struggling beneath a fallen branch. It was a young deer, caught in the thicket, eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Easy, boy," Jake instructed, realizing the pawing was not in aggression but in an attempt to help. He took a breath, grounding himself. "Rex, step back." Cautiously, he approached the startled animal, heart still racing but a new urgency propelling him. With gentle movements, he lifted the branch, freeing the deer. It bolted into the trees, disappearing in a flash. "Did you see that?" he breathed to Rex. Relief washed over Jake, but it quickly morphed into worry again. Where was Sarah? He turned to head back, and just as he did, noticed Rebecca and Sarah standing closer now, comforted by each other's warmth. But the moment was shattered when he caught a flicker of something in Sarah's eyes, something darker, an unsettled shadow mixed with confusion. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" Jake asked, kneeling down again, trying to meet her gaze. She nodded, but the uncertainty lingered. "You left me, I didn't want to be alone," Sarah whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. "The other people, they scared me." Jake's heart tightened. "I know, sweetie. I'm so sorry." He glanced back at Rebecca, seeing the pain mirrored in her eyes. "I thought I was keeping you safe." A sudden rustling in the bushes drew all their attention. Jake instinctively held Sarah tighter. They were so vulnerable now, exposed under the watchful eye of the forest's quiet. The fear that had lifted for a fleeting moment rushed back hard. He felt the tension rise, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Rex turned again, focused once more, ears pricking up at the sound. Jake's throat went dry as they all waited, hearts pounding in the stillness. What was out there, then? From the darkness, a shadow detached itself and stepped out, an older boy, disheveled but familiar. "I was looking for you," he exclaimed, relief rushing over his face. "I thought I lost you, too." Jake's heart plummeted as he recognized him, Ryan, a boy from the neighborhood who had hung around the festival. Suddenly, pieces began to click into place. "Where did you go?" Jake pressed, boundary between confusion and anger beginning to blur. "Why didn't you stay with Sarah?" "I thought we could find more balloons," Ryan explained, but stopped, eyes widening as he met Sarah's distressed face. "I was trying to help." The air was heavy with tension, regret pouring over them like rain. What really happened while they were separated? Each fragment of the story felt as fragile as the leaves around them. Jake stood up, hands on his hips, searching Ryan's eyes for answers. But the palpable weight of the unsaid lingered. He felt Rebecca's presence behind him, protective and ready to confront what darkness might have stirred between them in this chaotic moment. But was that the end of it? Or had something deeper begun to unravel amongst them? "A group just rushed through," Ryan finally said, voice wavering. "They were looking for a kid. I thought they might have taken Sarah, too." The dread was back, heavier than before. If they were in danger before? "What did you see, Ryan?" Jake asked, urgency pumping through his veins. The shadows in the trees seemed to grow thicker, the moment teetered on the edge of an unseen precipice, the soothing rhythm of the festival now just an echo. What if it wasn't over? What if this was just the beginning? Jake took a step closer to Ryan, anxieties bubbling to the surface. "What do you mean they were looking for a kid? Who? What did they look like?" Ryan's eyes darted to the ground, swallowing hard. They were shouting. I didn't see them clearly. They seemed frantic. Panic painted Rebecca's face. Frantic? Her voice quivered, worry etched deep in her brow. "Do you think they could come this way?" Jake felt the weight of the forest pressing down on them. They were outnumbered, and the feeling of being trapped in the thick brush was suffocating. "We need to get back. Now," he demanded, gripping Sarah's shoulders gently. "Can't we wait? We can't leave." Sarah's small protest nearly shattered him. She looked so fragile, eyes wide, still haunted by the shadows of that moment alone. "Sweetheart," Jake said softly, kneeling to meet her gaze. "I won't let anything happen to you. I promise. Just hold on to Rex." As Sarah nodded, Jake turned back to Ryan. "Lead the way. Find the path." Ryan hesitated, fear creeping across his face, then nodded, taking the first tentative steps back towards where he thought they came from. Jake kept Sarah at his side, Rex leading the charge ahead, sniffing the ground as a presence, protective and alert. Each rustle in the leaves felt like a whisper of warning in his ears, the forest suddenly becoming an ominous place, rather than the comforting backdrop of the festival from before. "Over here," Ryan called, his voice growing more confident. They followed him through twisting paths, each moment dragging them closer to safety, or so they hoped, but as they emerged into a larger clearing, the sound of the festival faint but beckoning in the distance, something pricked at Jake's ears. A flicker of motion caught his eye. Shadows flitted through the trees, and Jake felt a surge of unease. "Ryan, were you certain it was clear?" "I thought so." Ryan stammered, but panic characterized his tone now. "Run!" Rebecca shouted, gathering Sarah tight against her. The call sent a wave of adrenaline coursing through Jake, and he followed Rebecca, bolting forward, something monstrous seeming to awaken in the woods behind them. Suddenly, they burst into the open field where music and laughter reigned, but the relief was fleeting. Jake stopped, scanning the expanse. Festival-goers roamed, oblivious to their peril. "Is everyone okay?" Jake glanced around frantically, counting heads. Rebecca was close, clutching Sarah, but Ryan stood frozen. "What now?" I don't know." Ryan trembled. "Those people, they went that way." He pointed uncertainly towards a group still lingering close to the forest's edge. With renewed urgency, Jake marched towards them, but drew up short when he spotted the unmistakable figure of a man in a dark hoodie, moving through the crowd too smoothly, too intentionally. The man scanned the area, something predatory in his focus. "Stay behind me," Jake instructed, his heart leaping again. They could be in more danger than ever. With Rebecca and Sarah just a heartbeat away, he felt the deep urge to protect them, even as the knot of uncertainty tightened in his gut. Who were these people? And why did Ryan feel such dread? He stepped forward, his instincts kicking in, hand tightening at his side. "Stay close, everyone. Just don't break apart." And then, in the distance behind the crowd, he spotted more figures emerging, indistinct, yet equally unnerving. "Jake!" Rebecca's voice brought him back from the edge of panic. "What do we do?" Jake's mind raced. They couldn't just stand there. "We need to get to the police. They have to know." As they moved toward the festival's main stage, Jake felt the shadows still looming behind them, shadows that followed like a haunting echo. But the crowd. The laughter. He tried to convince himself they were safe now, yet dread coiled in his stomach, whispering dark thoughts. Were they really out of danger? Or had they just stepped deeper into something far worse? "Hold on tight," he murmured under his breath, knowing that some truths might now be impossible to escape. This wasn't the end. It might have just begun. What lay beyond the laughter? What darkness awaited them? The music thumped through the air, a false backdrop for the tension coiling in Jake's chest. He kept scanning the crowd, each face a blur, but the dark figure in the hoodie carved itself into his mind. He moved slightly ahead, glancing back to ensure Sarah stayed glued to Rebecca. "Stay close," Jake reminded them, voice firm but edged with worry. His heart raced in every corner of his mind. He felt the looming threat, a question that echoed louder than the festival tunes. Who were these people? And why did they seem to be hunting? Ryan stayed close, but the look in his eyes betrayed a deeper fear. "What if we can't find a police officer?" His voice was shaky, almost lost in the din around them. "Then we make it to a safe space," Jake said, fighting the urge to turn around and shove his way through the crowd. Each second felt like an eternity, and the tension between safety and peril hung thick, making the lights of the festival seem artificial, almost mocking. They entered the main area of the festival. Vibrant booths displayed glistening treats, cotton candy, popcorn, and bright trinkets, but Jake barely noticed. The music thrummed, and laughter danced in his ears, but it felt distant now, like a memory. Jake's gaze darted to every corner, every movement, trying to catch a glimpse of the danger before it struck. "Hey! Are you all okay?" A friendly voice pulled Jake from his anxious haze. An officer approached, his badge glimmering in the lights. The officer's German shepherd, a big friendly creature with a shiny coat, stood beside him, tail wagging as if caught up in the festivity. Jake rushed forward, relief flooding him. "We need help," he managed, almost pleading. "There are people we think they're looking for a kid, and they might be dangerous." The officer's demeanor shifted immediately. He steadied himself, his expression serious. "Where did you see them last?" "Just back there by the trees," Ryan interjected, pointing nervously. Before Jake could respond, the officer called to another nearby officer, eyes alert. "We need to broadcast a description. Keep these young ones close." He gestured for Sarah and Rebecca. The dog sat attentively as the officer moved closer, his presence radiating calm. "Sir, let me handle things," he urged, his voice low yet commanding. "Stay here. We're going to make sure you're safe." Jake clenched his fists, frustration bubbling up inside him. "But what if no buts?" the officer interrupted, an edge slipping into his tone. "This is what I'm trained for. Trust me." Sarah, clutching Rex, shuffled close to Rebecca. Her innocent eyes, wide with fear, locked onto Jake's. He wanted to shield her from the world, to pull her into a bubble where nothing could touch her. But life didn't work that way, and, for now, all he could do was trust the officer. "Okay," he said finally, taking a breath. "Just keep us informed." As the officer radioed in, Jake turned to Ryan, who stood rigid, eyes darting. "You're doing great, man. Just stay with me." They watched as the officer started to move towards the tree line, the dog sniffing the ground intently. The crowd continued to dance and twirl, unaware of the terror lurking on the fringes just beyond their laughter, but Jake felt it, fear settling like a stone in his gut. How long until those searching figures encroached upon their temporary haven? Then he caught a glimpse of movement at the edge once again, familiar shapes weaving through the crowd. Jake's heart dropped, recognition striking deep as he realized it was the very people they were afraid of. "They're here." Jake's voice broke across the energy of the festival, urgency clawing at him, and in that instant, the carefree atmosphere shattered, amplifying the chaos. The officer turned sharply, ready to spring into action. What awaited them now? Would the darkness encroach deeper into this sea of light? Jake's heart pounded as he scanned the crowd, eyes narrowing on the hooded figures edging ever closer. The vibrant lights and music washed over him like a distant tide, fading into background noise as adrenaline surged through every vein. Panic surged alongside fear, battling for breath. "Over there!" Jake shouted, pointing with urgency. "We need to move. Now!" The officer's eyes flicked in the direction Jake indicated, instincts sharpening. "Stay right behind me," he commanded, firmly stepping into the swell of bodies, his hand steady on his partner, the German shepherd, who seemed to sense the change in energy. "Jake, what if they see us?" Ryan's voice climbed an octave, panic creeping into every word. "We'll be fine. Just stay together," Jake urged, squeezing Sarah's hand as he guided her and Rebecca to follow closely. The crowd shifted, an unending whirl of laughter and bright colors, but Jake felt a chasm opening beneath him, a clear divide between safety and threat. The officer moved quickly, weaving through people who were blissfully unaware of the danger lurking just over their shoulders. Jake could feel the fear seeping into the atmosphere, thick like fog. They passed a booth with glittery trinkets, a child squealed in delight, momentarily distracting him, but he pushed forward, unwilling to break his focus. "Stay together. Don't get separated," the officer yelled over the fading music. He didn't look back, eyes fixed ahead, scanning faces and reactions. It was clear he was in his element, but for Jake, everything felt like it could shatter in an instant. Another movement caught Jake's eye, a body language too familiar. The hooded figures were no longer lurking at the edge, they stepped into the main area, their posture menacing, whispers exchanged. It sent a chill racing down Jake's spine. "Jake!" Ryan whispered, panic rising. "What do we do?" "Just keep moving," Jake urged again, glancing over his shoulder at the officer. "They can't get to us if we stay close to him." But the officer was suddenly obstructed by the thrumming crowd surrounding a performer on stage. They stumbled into a mass of swaying bodies, laughter echoing all around, drowning their fear but amplifying the urgency. Jake could see the figures breaking out of the throng, eyes scanning the festival until they landed on their group like a predator locking onto prey. Time slowed, yet Jake felt every tick of his pulse quicken. "Move!" he yelled, gripping Sarah's tiny hand. With every ounce of fear fueling him, he began to push through the crowd, Ryan right on his heels. They couldn't let the figures see them, couldn't let them close the distance, not now. Panic morphed into raw survival instinct, propelling him forward. Suddenly, a commotion erupted behind them. The officer reappeared, calling for backup into his radio, voice like thunder amidst the festival frenzy. "I need assistance at the main stage. Violent individuals are heading toward a group of miners." At the sound of miners, Jake's heart tumbled. Were they really about to be caught in this? Without warning, one of the figures stepped forward, shoving past laughing festival-goers, their eyes glitzed with danger. A surge of fear burst in Jake's chest. "This way. We need to find cover." Just as they veered dangerously close to the exit, an unexpected sound rang above the festival, a sharp whistle from the officer signaling for his dog. The German Shepherd leapt into action, bounding toward the figures. As confused festival-goers parted in surprise, Jake didn't look back. He was focused on Sarah and Rebecca, adrenaline pulsing, dragging them toward the exit. "We're almost there." But the moment Jake looked back, he felt a jolt of terror, a glint of recognition mingled with a sharp, possessive grin on the approaching figure's face. The world blurred, but the threat was clear. Would they make it to safety, or was the chase just beginning? Jake's breath quickened, each beat of his heart echoing in his ears like a war drum. The way that figure locked eyes with him sent a spike of terror through his chest. He refused to let fear sink its claws in. "Come on!" he shouted, pulling Sarah and Rebecca close. They stumbled forward, weaving between people who were unaware of the tightening jaws of danger. The vibrant colors and flashing lights became a blur, a stark contrast to the focus pressing down on him from behind. "Jake, hurry!" Ryan pressed, glancing over his shoulder. The urgency in his voice set Jake's pulse racing faster. He needed to get them out. He had to find shelter. The exit was so close, yet it felt like a mile away. "Don't look back, just keep going," he yelled again, forcing his legs to propel him forward. Sarah's small hand was warm in his grip, grounding him. Suddenly, the officer's voice boomed again, cutting through the festival cacophony. "Dog, stay close." The German Shepherd lunged toward the figures, fierce and determined. Jake couldn't help but briefly admire the partnership of man and dog as they charged into the chaos. They were a barrier of hope now, and maybe it was just what they needed. But then, another hooded figure flanked one of the exits, arms crossed malevolently, blocking their escape. This wasn't just a chase, it was a trap, and Jake's stomach turned. There was no way out if they didn't find another route, and fast. "Jake, what do we do?" Rebecca's wide eyes glimmered with fear. They were almost at an open space, but the figure loomed closer, making Jake's mind race for answers that didn't come. "Towards the food stalls." he decided, veering left without waiting for a response. It was crowded, but a coin toss was worth it if it meant dodging the threat. He heard a sharp bark from the officer's dog, barking at one of the figures that dared to approach. Laughter erupted from a nearby group, a stark contrast to the fear that swallowed Jake. He couldn't let them hear or see anything amiss. Laughter would mask their flight. Stay low. He bent slightly, pulling the children down with him, and ducked behind a tent filled with cotton candy. The bright pink sugar spun like their confusion, but Jake focused on keeping his thoughts sharp. We wait for a minute. We need to know where they are. He desperately wished for the officer to reappear, but fear and uncertainty wrapped around him, tighter than a vice grip. A crash echoed from the direction the officer had been, making Jake's heart leap violently. Was the dog still there? Was the officer okay? He couldn't let himself break down. Not now. Jake, I can't breathe, Sarah whimpered. Just hold on. We'll be out soon. I promise. He reassured, glancing around, searching for an exit. There. A path opened up between two stalls, leading toward an alley lined with dumpsters. It was risky but better than staying trapped. Ready? On 3, we run. Jake, we can't. Rebecca protested, panic lacing her voice. Trust me. Now. He looked them in the eye, willing them to believe in this moment. He led them through the tight space, adrenaline fueling them all. The sound of footsteps padded closer through the crowd, muffled yet menacing. Jake's instincts urged him to run, to get away. Just as they reached the alley, he froze. The hooded figure stepped into view, eyes narrowed and ready for trouble. Turn around. He growled, hands twitching toward a pocket. Jake held his ground, heart racing. He knew he couldn't show fear, but what if this was the end? Would they really have to face this figure alone? As he stood there, ready to shield the kids with his own body, another figure emerged behind the first. But instead of menace, a beam of authority radiated from the officer, dog at his side, ready to take charge. With the tension snapping like a taut string, Jake felt a surge of hope. Could they finally be safe, or would this moment turn into a fight for their lives? The officer's presence flooded Jake with relief, but adrenaline still surged through his veins. He felt the weight of the decision resting on his shoulders. The figure before him was still a threat, even with the officer in sight, and every second stretched taut with uncertainty. Step away from the kids. The officer shouted, his voice authoritative. Jake glanced at Sarah and Rebecca, their faces pale with fear. He wanted to go to them, to reassure them that everything would be okay, but he couldn't take his eyes off the hooded figure, fists clenched and body tense. Nobody needs to get hurt, the figure snarled, trying to sidestep the officer, but the dog leapt forward, already barking furiously. Its growl mixed with the sounds of the festival, creating a unique symphony of chaos and panic. Stay back. The officer warned as he moved closer. You don't want this to end badly. Jake's heart raced as he felt the small hands in his grasp tremble. He sensed their fear, which sent a wave of protectiveness surging through him. He wanted to comfort them but knew that staying quiet was their best option for now. The hooded figure hesitated, then took a half step back, eyeing the German shepherd, which paced defensively, ready to protect its handler. I'm not afraid of a dog, the figure spat, a sneer crossing their face. Then try that theory with a bite, the officer replied. The tension in the air was almost palpable. Jake felt a mixture of horror and the thrill of being so near an unpredictable confrontation. Come on, we need to get out of here, Jake whispered to the kids, trying to edge backward without drawing the figure's attention. Time moved like molasses. Each second brought them closer to a dangerous culminant. Suddenly, the officer lunged forward, grasping the hooded figure's arm. You need to come with me. He shouted, attempting to pull the figure back. But the looming threat was quick, twisting violently to break free. Jake! Run! He heard Ryan yell from somewhere in the distance. The command snapped Jake out of his frozen state. Go! He shot back, pulling Sarah and Rebecca behind him as he turned to dart back the way they came. They stumbled over uneven ground, pushing past festival-goers who raised their eyebrows in confusion, unaware of the threat lurking just behind them. The air felt electric as they broke away from the alley. Jake cut through the crowd, urging the kids forward, trying to gauge if the officer was behind them. He glanced back briefly to see a scuffle erupt in the alley, a clash of shadows and chaos. "Jake!" Rebecca called out, her voice trembling. "What if? We'll find help," he shouted, desperation lacing his tone. But as soon as the words left his mouth, he realized he had no idea what that meant. His thoughts raced. Where could they find safety? Would the festival in full swing be the perfect cover or just the start of their nightmare? Nearing the stage set up at the center of the festival, Jake felt it was their best shot. Perhaps there were more officers nearby. As he hurried, he thought he heard the officer's voice bellowing for backup in the distance, but the sound faded under the din of laughter and music. It was a wild scene, vibrant with life, yet Jake tagged it all gray under the veil of their looming dread. He needed to protect them, to get them somewhere safe, but even that prospect felt increasingly fragile with each beat of his heart. As they pushed closer to the stage, Jake took a breath, feeling a flicker of hope. But just then, he spotted the hooded figure again emerging from the chaos, determined and more dangerous than before. "Jake, look out!" Sarah screamed, her little voice cutting through the noise. Jake turned, adrenaline shooting through him once again. This time, there would be no running. It was time to face his fears, to stand strong for Sarah and Rebecca. But as he prepared himself to confront the threat head-on, he couldn't shake the looming question: would bravery be enough to keep them safe, or had they just traded one danger for another? Jake's knees felt weak, yet he stood firm, anchored by the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He instinctively pulled Sarah and Rebecca closer, aware that they needed him more than ever. This wasn't just about survival now, it was about showing them what courage looked like. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice steady, even though his heart raced like a runaway freight train. The hooded figure closed the distance. Each step ignited a wave of fear in those who spotted him. Festival-goers began to notice, faces twisting into expressions of confusion and worry. Jake's eyes darted towards the nearest exit. He couldn't let panic take hold. But what if the threat came for them? He had to keep his focus. As he stood his ground, Rebecca clutched his arm. "Daddy, I'm scared," she whispered, her voice trembling like a fragile leaf in the wind. "I know. Just hold on to me," he reassured her softly, squeezing her hand. He could feel his own fear bleeding into her, but he fought to keep that fear at bay. The officer shouted again, "Back away from the kids." Jake could sense his presence like a lifeline thrown into chaotic waters. The German shepherd, muscles taut, barked fiercely, a tangible warning that crackled through the confusion. In that instant, the hooded figure lunged toward them, a swift shadow cutting through the light. Jake instinctively stepped forward, unwilling to let this man disturb their fragile moment of safety. He felt a pit open in his stomach, a feeling as real as the trembling in Rebecca's grasp, but then, to Jake's surprise, the officer was there, throwing himself between the children and the looming danger. "You don't want to do this," he shouted, attempting to defuse the situation. It was a brave act that filled Jake with a flicker of hope. The figure paused, hesitating as if weighing his options. In that brief moment, Jake glimpsed a chance, a moment to escape. "Run!" he yelled to Sarah and Rebecca, pointing toward the stage, where safety loomed like a beacon. "Jake!" Sarah cried, darting toward him, but Rebecca remained frozen, fear cascading over her features. With a surge of adrenaline, Jake grabbed Rebecca's hand, urging her forward as he gestured for Sarah to follow. "We can get through. Together." Just as they began to move, the officer advanced, matching the figure's pace, confident and unyielding. But Jake could see the tension rising, knowing a confrontation was inevitable. "Please," the officer shouted, "just walk away. You don't have to do this. But the hooded figure laughed, a chilling sound that echoed all around them. It sliced through the noise of the festival, thin and cold. The crowd began to murmur, fear floating through the air like an unwanted fog. Rallying, Jake felt a surge of bravery thrumming in his veins, igniting something deep within him. He turned back to Sarah and Rebecca, their eyes wide with fear. We're getting out of here. Trust me, just stay close. Before he could finish, the figure lunged again, arms flailing, fury emanating from its very core. But then, a loud bark punctured the air, the German shepherd darting forward, teeth bared, ready to protect its own. Time seemed to stretch as Jake's breath caught in his throat. Would he finally see peace for his children? Would they be able to escape unscathed? Just as everything hung in the balance, Jake made a decision, one that might change everything. Go! He shouted into the chaos as he pushed forward, his heart hammering, refusing to show fear in front of the kids, and there, in that turbulent moment, he knew one thing for certain: he was about to find out just how powerful love and bravery could be when faced with the darkest of threats. As he steeled himself for the confrontation ahead, he could only wonder if they would emerge on the other side. What was about to unfold might reveal the true nature of the hooded figure, or it could turn their world upside down once and for all. Jake's heart raced, every beat like a drum pounding in his ears. The chaos of the festival swirled around him, but all that mattered now was protecting Sarah and Rebecca. The hooded figure loomed closer, a dark shadow against the bright lights of the fair. "Stay behind me!" he shouted, but the panic in Rebecca's eyes sent a chill down his spine. "We have to run," he urged again, pushing them toward the stage, the last refuge in a storm of uncertainty. Suddenly, the German shepherd launched forward, a blur of fur and bravery. The officer, steadfast, faced the hooded figure head-on. "Let us avoid this," he said firmly, determination etched into his features. The tension crackled like electricity. "Jake!" Sarah whimpered, her small voice barely audible over the din of the crowd. She grasped his waist, seeking comfort in the chaos. "Keep moving," Jake commanded, squeezing Rebecca's hand. He felt the weight of their fears and dreams wrapped up in this moment. They were connected, a family fighting against the encroaching darkness. As the officer and the hooded figure faced off, Jake saw a flicker of hesitation in the figure's stance. The laughter of children and the music of the festival began to fade as the crowd absorbed the tension, eyes wide with confusion and fear. "Move!" he yelled again, this time more urgently, pushing the girls toward the stage. There, the officer had restrained the figure, but Jake knew they needed distance. With every ounce of his being, he propelled them forward. The music surged back like a lifeline, and the crowd danced uninhibited, blissfully unaware of the danger lurking just behind them. Jake focused on keeping them safe, navigating through jubilant festival-goers. In alignment with instinct, they reached the performers' area. The stage was bright and alive, decorated with shimmering lights and colorful streamers, an oasis of joy amidst the brewing storm behind them. Then, another scuffle echoed from the crowd. Jake risked a look back. Silent dread washed over him as he saw the hooded figure surging forward once more, breaking free from the officer's grip. "You think I'll let you go?" the figure snarled, venom lacing every word. "Jake!" the officer shouted, seeing the threat re-emerge. The German shepherd growled, ready for action, a formidable protector standing guard at its handler's side. "Run!" the officer demanded, urgency filling his voice. Jake turned back to the girls, adrenaline coursing through him. The food stalls. Never breaking stride, they dashed through the vibrant energy of the festival. With each step, Jake felt the fire of determination burning brighter. They weren't just running away, they were embracing the strength of their bond and their community. As the crowd cheered, Jake felt a surging sense of hope. They would be okay. Together, they would break the chain of fear. Then suddenly, a loud commotion tore through the laughter, a flash of lights. The officer engaged, leading with his dog toward the hooded figure. Stay close. Jake shouted, urging his girls to follow him. They sprinted toward the nearest booth, weaving between festival-goers who were oblivious to the chaos, lost in their own worlds of happiness. Hold tight. They ducked behind a stall filled with bright-colored candy jars, pulling their bodies low. Jake could feel the thrum of energy around them. Just moments before, it had been pure delight, but now? It felt like a frantic heartbeat. Voices rose, confusion began to ripple through the crowd, a wave of fear morphing what had been a vibrant merriment into unease. Jake's mind raced as he tried to process what was happening. From their hiding spot, Jake spotted the officer still pursuing the hooded figure. The officer's face was set in stone, chucking aside his fear to safeguard the community. It was a reminder, a beacon, shining with resolute strength they weren't alone in this fight. Jake, what if they find us? Rebecca's whisper quivered above the noise that he glanced at her, eyes shining with determination. They won T. We won T. Let them. Remember, love is stronger than fear. Right. Then, a group began to spread out, creating a barrier. The hooded figure was cornering into them. Jake stood tall, breathing deeply, ready to face whatever came next. He wasn't turning back. They had strength in numbers. Now! He shouted, taking Rebecca and Sarah's hands. We're moving. They surged forward, pushing through to the heart of the festival. A shared determination hung in the air, others expressed a protective instinct for one another. In bright flashes, the officer directed the crowd, reassuring them as more officers arrived to surround the hooded figure. An entire community stood firm against the encroaching darkness, and it was beautiful. The joyful laughter returned, real and untainted. The figures melted back into the festival haze as the officer caught up, breathless but alive. He offered Jake a nod, a silent understanding resonating in that shared glance. Together, Jake whispered to Sarah and Rebecca. His heart held the warmth of community, resilience, and love in the face of fear. And as they walked back into the bright lights of the festival, hand in hand, Jake felt renewed. They had faced the storm, stood their ground, and together, they would always find solace in the warmth of connection, laughter, and love. Don't forget, he told them as the music wrapped around them once more. This is Oakwood. We always stand together. It was a pledge, a promise they would hold dear. And as they blended back into the vibrant spirit of the festival, he couldn't help but smile, radiating hope, knowing they emerged stronger for themselves and for each other, and as the festival lights twinkled brightly against the star-drenched sky, they celebrated a truth that pulsed stronger than any darkness: love could conquer fear, and every moment together mattered. Now more than ever, Jake appreciated the strength of a community, hearts linked by shared experiences. Because together, they would rise, and this was only the beginning of true transformation. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to not miss more exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these heartwarming moments alive. Comment your feelings about this inspiring journey. We want to hear your reactions. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.